Welcome. This is the Drupal usability meeting for March 8th, 2024. I'm Benji Fisher moderating and also hosting a session at Nerd Summit in Amherst, Massachusetts. And also present at the meeting are Aaron McHale, who's sharing his screen and will start off the discussion, Offer Schall, Ralph Kohler, and Simo Helston. So go ahead, Aaron.
Thanks. Today we're first of all looking at this issue. There is no indication on configuration forms if there are overridden values. That's issue number 240859. And the idea with this issue is that when you have, if I jump over to a site here, so with any configuration in Drupal, you can override it in the settings file. And this is sometimes useful for like environment specific configuration, in particular things like error logging settings. But if you override it, there's no indication on the actual form that a different value is being used. So for instance, so the site name here, you can see over here it's test site. If this was overridden with configuration to say something different like Drupal site, it would show up on the front end as Drupal site, but in the site name you still see test site. So the issue it sort of addresses that by adding, and I don't think this is the most up-to-date screenshot, but I'm going to demonstrate in a second, so it's fine. The idea is it adds a message to the form, basically saying that this form has overridden values. So to demonstrate it, if I open up VS Code here, I have this line here, I'll uncomment. This is in the settings.php file, just the one you can edit under site default. And I've added the line in the bottom here that's the config variable, and then it's the object, which is system.settings. And then I'm overriding the name property to say Drupal site. So I'm going to save that. I'm going to come back over here. When I refresh the form, you'll see that I now get the status message that says the following form elements have overridden values. So overridden values is a link in your current context. Changes to these values will be saved, but the overridden values will take precedent. And then it gives me a list of the specific fields which have overridden values, in this case site name. And you can see that in this case, site name still says test site, but I just have to clear the cache because front end is heavily cached. So bear with me 1 second while I do that. And now if I refresh the front end here, we'll see it says Drupal site here. That's the site title, but again, I'll just refresh this to demonstrate. It still says test site here. So the merge request, the issue is just adding this message. It's not actually going to display what the overridden value is, and that is by design because we want to be careful. Sometimes, for instance, you might use overridden value to insert like an API key, for instance, and maybe we don't want that showing in the admin interface. Maybe we don't want a site builder getting their hands on this API key, or we want to protect it. So that's why all this issue is doing is adding this message that just makes it clear that an overridden value is present on the form, in this case, the site name. Another example of that, actually, if you want to sort of test out of the box, if you have a site installed with DDEV, DDEV has this additional settings file and it overrides a whole bunch of things, including the system logging, the error log level. So on a DDEV installed site, you would see this without having to make any changes by coming to the configuration and logging in errors. And then you'll see again, it's the same idea where we have the same message, but this time it's showing that the error message or display field is being overridden. In this case, the
Okay,
value
Aaron,
that's
can
yeah,
you
go
pause
ahead.
for a minute? So, any questions at this point? I am familiar with overriding config, but I guess maybe not everyone is. Any questions about the purpose of the overrides, the purpose of the message? I'm not seeing any reactions. Okay, so go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, I was just saying that like basically this is another example where in this case in the form we have the error message to display set to none, but in configuration or sorry in the settings it's set to verbose. So that would be the equivalent of I guess I'd be changing it to the all messages with backtrace information. So that's just another example, but I thought the site settings one was a more clear example of how this would be used. Um, so yeah, I thought to because I have some ideas. Oh, I should point out. So the link here, overridden values, um, actually opens a new tab and it goes to the Drupal documentation for configuration override system. And I have some thoughts, but I'll open up to other people to give their input first.
Go ahead, Simo.
I can see that it's a list item, that site name, that's been overridden. So if there are multiple values overridden, does it have a list of like all of them as list
Yeah,
items?
I believe so. So if I just like that's the wrong one. So if I edit this one, if I I'll just for ease copy this. I think it's mail. So if I override mail, um, we'll find out in a second and save this. And then refresh. Yeah, so you can see if there's more than one value on this form has been overridden, it will show each field that has an overridden value.
Oh, and it looks as though those are links to the location in the
Yeah,
page.
that's right. Yeah, so if you click, it will take you to which didn't work as well in on the other form, because it was if you have a short form, it's not gonna, it's gonna ping you down to the bottom. Like if I override this value and I click the link, it would just take me here. I guess it would. Does it activate? It does activate the field, so that it puts your cursor in the field, so that's good.
And Ralph shared in the Zoom chat that we commented on this issue several months ago, comment 182 on the issue.
Let me just load that up. I didn't remember seeing. I did a search for usability review in the issue and didn't recall seeing one, but oh, okay. Wonder how I missed that. That's interesting.
Maybe you were searching for needs usability review, the review
Yeah, I
tag.
thought I just searched for maybe I just searched for the tag, but it looks like the tag wasn't added or removed in this comment, so that would explain why. Okay, yeah, so we discussed it 6 months ago, and so the suggestions were switch the message type to info. That looks like that's been done. Long since been moved to the bottom of the proposed info message. I'm not sure what long. I guess that would be. I guess that was. I suppose it's been reworked since then, but we can see, yeah, the example here. So it looks like the message has changed a bit since the last review. Um, yeah, adding a link. So the link was added to the documentation. Use translated label. Yeah, I guess from I guess I'm looking at this. I'm thinking so the most recent comments actually were I think yeah. So I tagged it suggesting we could help in this meeting. Um and that was because of I believe it was Alex Potts' comment here. Yeah, I'm trying to remember what maybe it was Okay, so Gabor left a comment here.
And it looks as though Alex Pott explicitly removed the details element. You see
Yeah.
somewhere there's a reason for that.
Yeah, so I think it was this comment, these comments here that prompted me to retag it because let me just check. That's yeah, so did Alex say? Contained values, so I'll check it. Yeah, so the values in the form are not overridden. They are values from the active config, which you can change from this form. I think we need some better text here. Not sure yet though what that is. And I think this might be oh, Gabor is saying I had this text suggestion in comment 1 originally. The form may include elements which have overridden values in your current context, and these values will not save changes. Yeah, I guess that's very similar to what is currently on here.
So what is it you want to talk about improving?
Yeah.
Is it just the text of the message?
I think one thing that comes to mind is like I'm not sure that having this link right here says, it says overridden values and it takes you to a documentation page, it opens in a new tab. That is generally not the practice we'd recommend. So I think if we're going to link to the documentation, my recommendation would be that we have a link that's, as we talked about in, actually, I think it was the last meeting, where the text informs the user where they're going. Because when I saw this link and I clicked it, I was expecting to actually maybe go to do something like what the links below in the list do. Instead, I didn't realize it would open a documentation page. So I think we need slightly better link for the documentation.
Okay. You're getting a thumbs up from Simo. So I guess the other things we look for in a message like this are, one, is it clear? Is it simply worded? Two, does it describe the current situation? And three, does it give you information, actionable information, if you want to do something about it? So I think the third point is the link to the documentation. Will explain what you have to do to change it. So I think it passes that. I think the text is pretty clear. The only problem I see is the one you've pointed out, that that the link, especially for accessibility, should stand alone,
Yeah.
without context, to clearly indicate that it's a link to documentation. Does anyone else see any other problems with the current text? So what is the most graceful way to rearrange the text to make it clear where that link is going?
Wondering if what does it go to right now? Okay, so it goes to the configuration override system. So that's a pretty useful page actually, because it is very helpful in the current context. So my feeling, and for others feel free to jump in, but my feeling is that the link should be something like find out more about configuration override system, something to that effect, so that it's clear that you're going to a separate page where you can find out more information.
Yeah, so I think sort of the simple fix would be to add a third short sentence. Read more colon configuration system override. By default, I usually take the page title of where the link is going.
Let's see if I
And the
can.
only problem with that is that it makes the text 50% longer.
Yeah.
And I see Thomas Howell has joined us. Hi, Thomas.
Hello.
We are revisiting an issue that we talked about back in September, and I think you posted a comment on the issue after we reviewed it the last time. So Aaron points out that the current text, the link overridden values, doesn't work for accessibility. It's not clear without the context of the sentence it's in that it's going to a documentation page.
Ooh. Oh, I used the wrong tag, but never mind. Maybe something like this, so that you have that link below it, maybe. Is that the, yeah.
Thomas, go ahead.
Why not just say documentation about the configuration override system? That would be very explicit.
So, I'm sorry, can you phrase that again?
Rather than read more, just replace read more with documentation. So it says documentation
okay.
about the configuration override system.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't even have to include system. It could just be documentation about configuration override.
Yeah, I put system because that's what the page says, but if the page title changes, then it becomes inconsistent. So maybe, yeah, maybe we don't need the word system. Configuration overrides, maybe, because that's. I'll drop the and do that.
And I'm generally a fan of complete sentences, but for something like this, I might sometimes use just documentation colon and then the link.
Yeah.
And I think Ralph, you wanted to say something?
Yep. Aaron removed the read more now, but the only thing I would add is I wouldn't wrap the entire sentence in a link if there is also a read more. And also in that case now, even though it isn't a link element wrapped in a link element like the ones above, but having those three in a row now, the impression might be made that basically it belongs also to that list, and instead of placing it at the bottom, moving it up in the introductory part with the following form elements have override values and so forth at the end as a third sentence, maybe. That is just a thought.
Yeah, I was also thinking that it should go at the end of the two existing sentences. And, there are cases where a whole lot of things are being overridden. So like Switch API or Mailer. And we don't want the documentation link to be hidden because it's below, because you need to scroll to it or something. So
Mhm.
I think putting the link before the list is a good idea.
Why has it got? I think I messed something up here because it's got like it's added the link twice. See if I can extract this out. Okay, so you're suggesting like at the end of this sentence.
Right? So above the list.
And maybe re-add the read more, not wrapped in that link.
Hmm.
I'm not a fan of the wording read more, though. It sounds really weird to me in a website.
True.
More information,
Yeah.
reference, details. What would you suggest, Thomas?
I mean, I still prefer documentation because it's literally going to documentation. And I'm fine like pulling about, but the read more sounds like marketing copy to me. It doesn't sound like what I would read in a UI.
What about just configuration override documentation then? One fewer word.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Because I think like normally we want to like have, you know, explicit link text, but you know, we made a really good point that this could be quite a long list, and we want to try and minimize the amount of like things that you have to parse in this message. Ugh. Doesn't need like a like a, you know, full stop, ellipse.
Well, if it's not a full sentence, then it doesn't
Okay.
need a full stop.
No, something about that doesn't quite sit with me. I think it's just how abrupt that link text is.
Go ahead,
'Cause-
Ralph.
I'm not sure. I think I sort of agree with Thomas in regards of read more sounds sort of odd, but still it should be a bit at least actionable. At the moment, it's just configuration overrides documentation. It's something like eat or die, or I don't know what the saying in English is the correct one, but and also it's the same like before it was at the bottom, now it's at the top. It could be still considered as one link of the others underneath that way, and therefore, and this also doesn't have a period at the end, and therefore it could be also considered one list item that way, and therefore I still think some sort of
Yeah,
verb.
can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Let's make it a full sentence. Keep what you have as the link text, but start it with C, and then the link configuration overrides documentation, and then for details, period.
Okay.
And that
This is
sort
gonna
of
require.
sets it off from the other links so that it's more clearly part of the
So what? Sorry, what
text
you said? Then to see configuration override
for
documentation.
details. And whoops, you've got that inside the
Oh,
unordered list.
hold up. What is? Oh, I see. It's just okay. Editing HTML on the fly is fun. Is it for details? It's like the link because It's not for details about this message. It's more about like for the system. So
For more
is it?
information, I was just trying to keep it short since it's already too long.
Sorry, I got a spam call just there and it took over my headset. For the
For more information would be perhaps clearer, just a little bit longer.
yeah.
Personally, I think that that's clear. It solves a lot of the problems we've brought up. The only thing I don't like about it is that it's, as I said earlier, 50% longer than the original text.
Yeah. Let's
Um,
change the zoom level to see how it
in the
looks in different.
chat,
So
Offer asks, did we ever try asking Claude AI for things like that? Generate short sentence for. I don't think I have. Is that something you want to do and post the results in the chat? Or of course, feel free to
Yeah.
speak up.
And I need to connect from my computer. So be right back.
Okay.
We could shorten things like the following to these form elements. I mean, because I don't know what other form elements they would be referring to. Like we could try and pull some of the words out to shorten the first two sentences.
or could we just start it with form elements? Or like some form elements. Is this word current context? Like I can't think of a better word for that, but like does that make sense? Because the point is like I get what they're saying. It's like that could be like on this environment or in this specific situation that you happen to be in. It's
Yeah, I'm not sure what that phrase current context means in here.
yeah, because
I
we
think we
Wouldn't
could
you-
strike it.
Yeah.
In the
I mean,
chat,
I think you always
In the chat, Ralph is suggesting on the current page or this page. I'm in favor of just striking it rather than replacing it with anything. Less is more. Some form elements have overridden values. Changes to these values will be saved. There's a little repetition there, but the overridden values will take precedence. Thomas, go ahead.
I was just going to say that almost everything in the website is contextual, so it's weird to call it out here. So I really wanted to support the shorter version, and I feel like the second sentence is also longer than it needs to be still.
Yeah, and we have values, values, values. That's a little annoying. Would it still be clear if we just said changes will be saved? So removing to these values, changes will be saved, but the overridden values will take precedence.
I'm also thinking that like technically this isn't correct because some form elements is actually not strictly true because the form elements actually don't have the overridden values. It's what you see like here is the overridden value, not
Right.
here.
Maybe some form values rather than form elements, or
Could it
some
like
values.
yeah, or maybe
Ralph?
like some configuration. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Just one idea about the second sentence. Instead of but the overridden values, just use but the overrides will take precedence. That way you could strike values. And it's always shorter.
Thomas?
Could we try something along the lines of some form values are overridden elsewhere. That might be more clear. Because if we're not saying they're not here, or I don't like some a whole lot, but these form values are overridden, and then maybe or maybe not elsewhere.
Yeah, I like are overridden rather than have overridden values.
So some,
And I agree
Yeah.
also with Thomas that we should go back to these rather than some, because we are explicitly listing the
Okay.
ones that are overridden. It was originally the following, and you changed that to some.
so sorry, then after elements, what were we saying?
I said these form values are
Oh.
overridden.
Right.
Yeah, what was the, hold up. I can get a, oh, you know what, I can just reload this page in a new tab. Very carefully. Yeah, so we went from the following form elements of overridden values in your current context to these form elements, sorry, these form values are overridden. It's like, are overridden in maybe like in some cases. I'm trying to think of like, how do we emphasize the fact that like they're not overridden on this page, but in other places the value you put here is not the value that will be displayed.
Then you put in something like elsewhere. These form values are overridden elsewhere.
No. I think the documentation link will clarify that if people are confused.
Yeah,
I mean,
because we are saying something here, so
I think what we say is accurate, and brief. And being brief, it's it's not going to explain to someone who doesn't understand what's going on, but that's what the linked documentation is for.
I wonder where current context came from. That I can, oh my gosh. So let me go to the session.
Ralph, go ahead.
Just, oh, could you quickly go back to the example?
Yeah.
No, that's the old.
Oh, the one we've been working.
Yeah. Would it make sense? These form values are overridden. Change it. Oh, no, it's oh. Oh, sorry. I have to rethink.
Okay. Oh, just saw in the chat, offer suggests overridden form values take precedence despite saving changes. Refer to configuration override docs.
Yeah, I took the text from the screen and asked it to make it very concise.
I have a feeling that I know that we have a policy about how we use things from AI, and I don't remember what, like, if we have to, if we use that, I think we have to like state somewhere that it was generated by AI or something. I don't know the exact policy though.
We should look that up before the next meeting. Go ahead, Ralph.
I think now I've figure it out. What I wanted to say. From my perspective, these form values are overwritten. Changes will be saved. That changes, the question is which changes, and would it make sense to make clear changes made here on this form basically will be saved, but the overrides will take precedence to make that exactly crystal clear to people.
Yeah, Aaron, could
Yeah.
you insert a few words, changes on this form will be saved? And then could you take offers suggested text and put it in as a separate paragraph just for comparison?
Yeah. Let me hold up. I'm gonna this is gonna like duplicate the whole thing because otherwise it's gonna get weird. So we'll take precedent and then it's okay.
And I actually don't like that AI generated sentence. I think
Also,
the
in the link.
despite saving changes really rubs me the wrong way. I think that I think it is not clear that the overrides are currently in effect and will still be in effect if you make changes and save the form. The the, the AI generated text sort of says to me that yeah, it's only interacts if you change it, and I think the text we had is clearer.
Yeah.
So you've duplicated it, but you didn't replace our text with the.
I thought I did. I was the only thing. Yeah, because overridden, because it starts overridden. Oh, overridden form values. Okay. Oh, I see. Let me just copy the whole thing. That'd be easier.
I mean, I think our version starts with this really short sentence explaining the current state, and I think that's a virtue of a status message.
Offer, where was your text meant to start from? Did you intend for the first sentence?
I was
stay?
just giving it the full these form values are I gave it the whole thing
Okay.
and asked it to write it more concise, and that what came
Uh-huh.
back. We can make adjustment if you think we should use something like that. I just sometimes, especially for me, because English not my first language,
Oh,
I found Claude to be incredible in saying things I want to say in a better way. Where especially when again I can adjust it by telling it, oh, but it's not clear that something, or make it shorter or friendlier, or I can ask it to do things, and in half a second I get back a result.
okay. I'm just gonna dump in the whole
Make
thing.
it friendlier. I think that's something that I should be using more often.
I'm just gonna do this. Yeah.
So,
Again, it's not like this is the thing. It's not overridden form values. It's overridden configuration values, technically. So this isn't actually. It's shortened it, but it's changed the context of what this means in doing so to make this not true.
okay, let's hear Thomas's comment and then take a quick vote on which version we prefer.
These are really tiny changes, and I don't know if they're even if they change the message. But in the first sentence, can we say safely these values are overwritten? Changes on this form will be saved, but overrides will take precedence. See configuration overrides documentation for more.
So you're just striking
Form, I'm striking
the word the, yeah.
Yeah.
And instead of for more information, you're suggesting just for more?
Yeah, and we can leave information, like that was last second change, but I'm just trying to get some more word economy, because that's really what Claude AI did, was get a lot of word economy. I'm not sure that saving 5 words is worth it to switch versions, because like the length difference isn't that big, and the way the Claude AI is written refer to, like, we don't have the link in there, we're back to ending on the link, where configuration override docs would be the link, which is what Ralph rightly brought up earlier, kind of looks like it's part of everything else. So I feel like they really aren't, the differences between these two, even without the changes I've suggested, are minimal, and we can get some more word economy at the cost of it sounding or being as readable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
so what was sorry, what was the changes that you said to this first sentence?
These values are, so drop form from the first sentence. So, no, not that one, but the first one. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because farm is not true, strictly speaking, in this context. So, okay.
These values are overridden. Changes on this form will be saved, but overrides will take precedence. We don't need
strike the word the before overrides.
After but. Yep.
Oh, okay. I got you.
And is overrides got 1D too many in it?
Yes.
I don't. Oh, is it one?
It needs 2 R's, but only a single D.
Oh, saving letters everywhere. Okay.
So now we're talking about 20 letters difference between these two sentences.
Okay, so
was there another? Did you say something about the third sentence to change?
I'm removing, like, ignore what I said about that. This is fine.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so now let's take a quick vote. Who's in favor of the first sentence? I am. Thumbs up from Simo and Ralph and Thomas. And who's in favor of the shorter version below? Quick, take your thumbs down. Offer and Aaron are abstaining. Okay.
I guess I'm in favor of the first one.
So I will admit to a certain bias for things that I come up with over things that an AI suggests. And I try to be aware of my biases, but yeah, I think in this case that we have solid reasons for preferring the version we came up with.
As I said, it's also like this is also like what the AI has done is it shortened it, but it's missed out some context that now makes the sentence like inaccurate. So I think we kill the AI. Wait, is this the right?
Okay, so the original goal was really for accessibility rather than usability, to make the link text something that would be understandable out of context. And of course, less is more, and we were unhappy making the text longer, but we've succeeded in getting it really close to the current version. So I like that. Simo?
A question about the list of values. So we have site name and email address. So it's obvious they are not in alphabetical order. They are in the same order that they are on the form. But do we know if it's coincidence here, or is it always the same order than in the form? Or might it be something like some system setting that just orders them like that, some kind of weight. So do we know if it's always the order they appear on the form, or is it somehow?
Without looking at the code, I don't think we can be sure, but my guess is that it's in the form order.
Yeah, so we could like ask to check that they are in some kind of, they are ordered the same always. So it would make sense to have them in the form order, or for a very long list, it would make sense to have them in alphabetical order. But I think the order they appear on the form makes sense. But it would be good to check that it's taken care of.
I mean, we can state that we agree that having them in the order they appear on the form is a good thing, which I think is I would agree with. I think my feeling is, based on a quick reading of that, some of the recent comments, that they are, because it's like scanning down the form array and looking for things that have been overridden, but we can support that decision at least.
Yeah, and we're getting a thumbs up from Thomas on that, and Offer has posted into the chat the result of make it friendlier, and the AI comes up with this rather long thing with a lot of extra words that are supposed to make it friendlier. Hey there, just a heads up. Some form fields have preset values for this context. Any changes you make will be saved, but those preset overrides will still take priority. If you need more details, feel free to check out the configuration override documentation. I guess I would never write that, so maybe I will continue my curmudgeonly ways and not try to make my text more friendly. Great. Any further improvements on this feature?
Yeah, I think the tricky, like this is a tricky one, because I think this is probably the best we're gonna get, and like I don't think there's a perfect solution here because of just how many different ways this could be true. So I think that this is probably the best we're gonna get, I think. So yeah.
And Ralph points out there are 2 follow-up issues already.
I was looking actually about where the current context came from. Oh, it goes all the way back to the start of the issue. I think the first instance of the word current context was like literally in comment 1. So yeah, I don't think there's any more recent.
So we have 5 minutes left. Here at the conference where I am, no one else showed up, so I guess it's just as well that I never got the audio working.
Oh.
And Aaron, will you leave the comment for this issue?
Yeah, I can do.
And 5 minutes isn't really enough to look towards another issue, but okay, go ahead, Thomas.
Very briefly, so this year is not the year to do it, but at some point, would it behoove us at the main DrupalCons to try and get more visibility to the UX team, the UX work we do, to get more participation? I feel like we could do a cool presentation in the future. I don't have any time, and I don't think it's right of me to suggest this without volunteering myself to be part of whatever work would be needed. But I think we could do a cool presentation, because this work is really, it's really unglamorous, but it makes the overall application way better. And I think it would be nice to get like we used to have a very loud cheerleader. Loud's a really poor choice of words. Oh my gosh, she used to work for Acquia.
Web check.
Yeah, WebChick. When WebChick was on the team and at the cons, she was really talking up our mission. And it's why I'm here is because of WebChick. And I feel like we should consider maybe in 2025 if we can do anything in that domain to increase that visibility. And I'm going to stop now, but thank you.
Yeah, so I think it's pretty easy to arrange a BOF, and
I
it's
was
harder
thinking,
to get an actual presentation because that has to be vetted and accepted.
yes, very hard. I've tried before. But it's more, I would want to try and go that route first because BOFs are extremely hit or miss. And if you're trying to get visibility, WebChick was almost always giving 1 or 2 presentations. And so the audience is at least an order of magnitude larger. So that's why I'm just thinking like putting it out there for us to consider in 2025 or later.
Okay. And it's also not too late for DrupalCon Europe. Go ahead, Ralph.
Just one brief question about the issue I've linked for today's meeting as well. It's about an issue that is already committed to core, but quite one already asked in one of the issues if it would make sense to bring it to the UX folks. And my question is just the following. The link is here. And if you take a look at the following image, would it make sense just to comment on the issue that we take a look at one of the next meetings and to just create a follow-up issue about the wording and leave the code as is for now and the issue since it's in anyway? At the moment, it's just back to needs work because release notes should be added.
Okay. Yeah, we could certainly talk about that next week. Offer, go ahead.
I was in Florida Drupal camp and I spoke with Team Doyle, as you mentioned. Before we had WebChick cheering for that and bring these ideas, maybe he's the head of Drupal Association. He might be open to help in other ways to bring more visibility, because I do think how much it helps Drupal project as a whole. So maybe contacting him directly to find other ways.
Okay, and we are running out of our 5 minutes, but go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, just to say, like, I know Emma's not here today, but she mentioned because both her and I were at the last DrupalCon Europe, and she mentioned that compared to that year, compared to previous year she was there, she saw a lot more like UX related content related presentations. So I think there's like an upward trajectory, and definitely at least interest in the European side. So I think I think it would be a really great idea to present in some form like that, and something I've sort of thought about a little bit. And yeah, it's always helpful if it's like you know what, something like what we do carries a lot of weight behind it. So I'm sure we wouldn't have a hard time convincing to for that proposal to go through.
Great. Okay, and it is at the end of the hour. Thanks for bringing these up. I think it's good to have this sort of meta discussion about how we can improve our visibility, and let's continue to think about that. And I might not be here next week. I'll bring that up on Slack.
Okay.
Thanks for
Enjoy
showing
the
up.
rest of your conference.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.